Hi guys, we are going to get started with our second math lesson, lesson 12.2. So if you don't already have your book in front of you, go get it now. Alrighty, so let's get started with 12.2. So if you remember from 12.1, we learned about a bunch of new different measurement tools and different types of measurement categories, you can say. So we had customary units, which is what we use here in the United States, and we talked about length, units of length, units of weight, and units of liquids. Okay, and then we talked about the metric system, and we did the same things there, where we talked about length, mass, which is the same thing as weight, and then liquid volume as well. So now as we go through the rest of this chapter, we're going to be taking a closer look at each of those little categories of measurement. So today we're going to be looking at customary units of length. So we're going to be focusing on length, and we're going to look at how can we use models to compare customary units of length. So remember, the four customary units of length are an inch, a foot, a yard, and then a mile. For this lesson, we're not going to be using the mile. We're just going to be using inches, feet, and yards. Okay, and we're going to be using them to compare to each other and dive in more into how many inches make up a foot, how many feet make up a yard, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's get started. It says you can use a ruler to measure the length, to measure length. A ruler is 1 foot long when it shows 12 inches. So with my ruler here, it goes from 0 to 12. So this is a foot long ruler. Okay, you can buy ones that are smaller that are only 6-inch rulers. That would be half a foot. Okay, a ruler that is 3 feet long is called a yardstick, and that's what this big yellow picture is here. You may have seen one of these in your teacher's classroom at some point. That's called a yardstick because it is a yard. If we look down below, there are 3 rulers that make up 1 yardstick. So there are 3 feet in a yard. Okay, there's 12 inches in 1 foot. There's 3 feet in 1 yard. Now, I'm not going to have you cut out all these little shapes because your parents probably don't want little tiny shapes all over their house, and we can use the tiles that are already here on our paper. Okay, so as we just talked about, if we laid 12 1-inch tiles, so if I was to take my ruler and I was to measure an inch, right, and cut out papers for every single one of those inches, and we put them side by side by side, we would get 1 foot. Okay, so when we talk about comparing our size from 1 foot to the size of 1 inch, we'll need to look at how many inches do we need to make up that 1 foot. And we've already said this a couple times, we need 12. So when we write this statement, it says, so 1 foot is blank times as long as 1 inch. Okay, and what goes here is how many of the smaller lengths make the bigger length. So we know that 12 inches, okay, so 12 inches makes 1 foot, and that's kind of how you read this statement. So the number you would put in the blank is how many of the smaller make the bigger. Okay, so a foot is 12 times as large as 1 inch. Emma has 4 feet of thread. She needs 50 inches of thread to make some bracelets. How can she determine if she has enough thread to make her bracelets? Okay, so right now we see a couple things in here. First, we see that Emma needs 4 feet of thread. Okay, and then it tells us she needs 50 inches. Right now we're seeing 2 different types of measurements. We're seeing feet and then we're seeing inches, okay? We know that 1 foot is the same thing as 12 inches, okay? And because we know that, we can put that here, and then we can use what we know to fill out the rest of this chart. So if 1 foot has 12 inches in it, the inches isn't going, or the number of inches in 1 foot is not going to change. So we can use this 12 and multiply it by however many feet we want to know, and it will give us the correct amount of inches. So if I want to know how many inches are in 2 feet, I'm going to do 2 times 12. Okay, 2 times 12 is 24. Okay, so 24 inches. As I continue on, right? Then I would do 3 times, my 12 is not changing, so 3 times 12. 3 times 12 is 36. Good. 36 inches. And we're doing this to try and get close to our 50 inches that she needs, because we're trying to convert our feet to inches, okay? So then I'm going to do 4 feet, and I still know there's 12 inches in 1 foot, so 4 times 12. 4 times 12 is 48 inches, okay? And then again, we still know there's still 12 inches in 1 foot, so we do 5 times 12. 5 times 12 is 60. Okay, and we're going to take these numbers that we have over on our equal side, and we're just going to put those into the chart. You don't have to write inches after them because there's already inches up here at the top that tells me that is what I'm looking at on this side of my chart. Okay, so we know that Emma has 4 feet. So if in my chart I find where 4 feet is, how many inches is next to 4 feet in our chart? 48, good. So Emma is right here. This is how much she has. Okay, so she has 48 inches with her 4 feet. It said she needs 50 inches. Okay. So as we move along, that information is going to be important. So here, when we want to compare 2 different types of units of measurement, we have to be able to convert them into one of the 2 forms. So here, if I'm looking at feet and inches, I either need to change my feet into inches or I need to change my inches into feet. By looking at that chart we just made, there's not an exact amount of feet that would make 50 inches, okay? But I can change my 4 feet into inches. 4 feet was equal to 48 inches, as you guys figured out earlier, okay? And we're going to keep our 50 inches over here because we want what we're comparing to have the same unit after it. So now I just have to look at my front. So is 48 bigger, smaller, or equal to 50? Good, it is smaller or less than 50. So it says 4 feet is, like you said, less than 50 inches. So Emma does not have enough. She does not have enough thread. Okay. Our next question asks us, what if Emma had 5 feet of thread? Would she have enough thread to make the bracelet? Explain. So I need to figure out the first part of this question. First part of this question is asking me if she had 5 feet of thread, would she then have more than the 50 inches she needs? So if I go back up to my chart, we actually already did 5 feet. But if we hadn't done it in our chart yet, we could use the same way, the same operations we did here to do our 5 feet times 12 inches, because I want to change to inches, and I know that 12 inches go into 1 foot. Okay, so if I look up my chart, it says 5 feet is the same as 60 inches. So if she had 5 feet, she would really have 60 inches. And it's asking me, is 60 inches enough for her to have 50 inches to make those bracelets? And it would be, right? It's actually more. We have 10 inches more. She'll have leftover. So here we would say, yes, she can, right? She does have enough. And then we got to make sure we do the explain part. That explain part is very important, okay? So we explain it just as we figured it out. So yes, because 5 feet is the same thing as 60 inches, right? So because 5 feet is the same thing as 60 inches. 5 feet is the same thing as 60 inches. And then we know that if we do a comparison like we did above, 60 inches is more than, good, 50 inches. So we know she will have enough because 60 is bigger than 50. All right. As we continue on, I want to point out at the top of your page, they have this handy little box up here that shows those conversions that you have them readily available to you right there. So it shows us that 12 inches equal 1 foot, that 3 feet equal 1 yard, and it even gives you that in 1 yard there are 36 inches, because that might come up at some point along the way. So looking at our first one, it says compare the size of 1 yard, compare the size of a yard to the size of a foot. Use the model to help. So in our model, we have 1 yard, and then we see 3 smaller boxes below, because we know that, according to our chart, 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So each of these would be 1 foot, because we have 3 of them next to each other, which means those 3 make up the one above. So the yard is how many we have? 3 times, I have this written 3 times, so as long as what's in one of my boxes, 1 foot. Again, like we saw in the one that I showed you earlier, this number of times is how many of the smaller unit make the bigger unit. Okay. All right, so for the next set of numbers, 2, 3, and 4, we're looking to complete the sentence here. And this is just converting one form of units to another form of units. So here I have 2 feet is equal to how many inches? Okay. So what I want to look for is, what am I going from? I'm going from feet to inches. So if I look at my chart, I would look for my foot or feet and inches. And I know that 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So I'm going to take this 12, because that also tells me, like we have our statement here, 1 foot is 12 times as long as 1 inch. So I could do 2 times 12 to figure out how many inches I have. What is 2 times 12? 2 times 12 is 24. So it would be 24 inches. Okay. In our next one, if you look, we're going from yards to feet. Okay, so in my chart, if I don't remember, I want to look and see what yards to feet are. And I see that 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So just like we wrote here, 1 yard is 3 times, right? That times is telling you to multiply okay? So if I have 3 yards and I want to turn it into feet, I would do 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Good. So this would be 9 feet. 3 yards is the same as 9 feet. Okay. Our next one, again, we're going from yards to feet. So we're going to use this times 3. And then I just take what is in front of my yards. So 7 times 3. 7 times 3 is 21. So it would be 21 feet. Alrighty. Our next section is, the first 3 are doing the same thing we just did. So we're going from yards to feet in the first one. So I know I need to multiply by 3 if I'm going to feet. And I take my number from in front of my yards and just use that. So 4 times 3. 4 times 3 is 12. Okay. So it takes 12 feet to make 4 yards. For my next one, again, I'm still doing yards to feet. So I'm going to use that times 3. And I take my number from in front of my yards and place it at the beginning of my problem. So 10 times 3. 10 times 3 is 30. Good. So it takes 30 feet to make 10 yards. Okay. For our next one, if we look, we're going from feet to inches. So they will throw other ones in there to mix it up. So I remember that going from feet to inches, I need to use my 12 because it takes 12 inches to make 1 foot. Right? So then I take my number from in front of my feet, my 7, and I would do 12 times 7. Okay. Our 12s are not ones most of us have memorized by heart. So if you needed to write it in our standard model form to do it, you can as well. And then remember, we would do 1s times 1, so 7 times 2, 14. And then we would do 7 times 1, 1 times 10, 1's place times 10's place, sorry. So 7 times 1 is 7, good. Plus the 1 extra on top makes 8, good. So this would be 84 inches. All right, so the next one, we are comparing the 2 different types. And remember, to compare, we need to have them in the same unit. So right now on number 8, we have feet, well, we have 1 foot, and then we have 13 inches. We cannot compare those right now because we don't have the same units of measurement. So we need to change. The easier way to change is to change from the bigger to the smaller. So if I have a foot is bigger than inches, so I know that 12 inches make 1 foot. So this would be 12 inches or 13 inches. Is 12 inches less than, greater than, or equal to 13 inches? Good, it's less than. So our alligator mouth wants to eat our 13. Okay. On number 9, we're looking at 2 yards and 6 feet. Okay, so what is bigger, yards or feet? Good, yards are bigger, so this is the one we're going to want to change. We want to change our yards into feet. And if we remember, or if we don't, we can look up here and we remember that 1 yard equals 3 feet. So 3 is what I'm going to multiply by. So I would take my number out front and multiply it by 3. 2 times 3 makes 6. And it's changing it into feet. So I have 6 feet is greater than, less than, or equal to 6 feet. Good, they are equal. They are both 6 feet. Okay. And our next one, we see 6 feet and 60 inches. So again, we're seeing feet and inches. What's bigger, feet or inches? Good. Feet are bigger, so this is the one we're going to want to change. Okay. So we would take our 6 and we would multiply it by the number of inches in 1 foot, which is 12. If we don't remember, it's there for us. Okay. So we would do 6 times 12. And again, if we don't know this one, we could do it in standard model and do our ones place times our ones place, which should be 6 times 2. 6 times 2 is 12, good. Then we would do our ones place times our tens place, so 6 times 1. 6 times 1 is 6, good. Plus 1 more makes 7. So this would be 72 inches is greater than, less than, or equal to 60 inches. Good, it is greater than. Now with this one, with our 60 inches, we also could have changed this into feet, only because we know from our previous chart over on this page that 60 inches make 5 feet, excuse me. So we could have looked at this as 5 feet as well, but they don't always work out pretty and make exact conversions when you're looking from the smaller to the bigger. That's why I say to always pick your bigger unit of measurement and change it into your smaller, because you can always do that using that multiplication. For number 11, it says, Joanna has 3 yards of fabric. She needs 100 inches of fabric to make curtains. Does she have enough fabric to make curtains? Explain and make a table to help. So they've already started a table for us over here that has yards on one side and inches on another. Okay. We know that she has 3 yards. That's why it only goes up to 3 on our chart. She needs 100 inches of fabric. So we need to see if 3 yards is greater than, equal to, or smaller than 100 inches to know if she has enough. So now your question might be, well, how many inches are in 1 yard? Well, in our handy dandy chart up here, it told us that. It told us that 1 yard is equal to 36 inches. Okay, so 1 yard is equal to 36 inches. Another way we could have found this is by remembering that 12 inches are in 1 foot, and then there are 3 feet in a yard. So if I did 12 3 times, that would be 3 feet. And that would make 2, 4, 6, and then 1, 2, 3. Okay, a little bit more work, but there's not always going to be that handy dandy chart on tests and things like that. So then when I'm doing 2 yards, I would do 2 times 36. Okay, or you could do 36 plus 36. Either way would work. So if we do 36 plus 36, I would do 6 plus 6. 6 plus 6 is, good, 12. Put down my 2, carry my 1. And then I would do 3 plus 3. 3 plus 3 is 6, good. Plus the 1 more up top makes 7. Great. So this would be 72. Okay. Now to get my 3 yards, I could take my answer from the last one, 72, and add 36 more to it, because I'm adding 1 more yard, which is 36 inches. So I would do 6 plus 2. 6 plus 2 is 8. Good. Then I would do 7 plus 3. 7 plus 3 is 10. Great. So this would be 108 inches. So now going back to our problem, we know that Johanna has 3 yards. So that means she has 108 inches if we convert it. It says she needs 100 inches of fabric to make her curtains. And then it asks us, does she have enough fabric to make the curtains, and to explain. So does she have enough? Yes, she does, right? She has 108. So that's actually 8 more inches than she needed. So we say our yes because we are agreeing that she does have enough, and then we need to explain. So to explain, we can use our chart here and talk about this conversion here. So when we would do that, we would say, right, she has 3 yards, which is equal to how many inches? Good, the 108. So because her 3 yards are equal to 108 inches, we know she has enough. Okay. Okay, for our next problem, it says select the measures that are equal. And then some very important words here. Mark all that apply, and that means that we are going to have more than one answer bubbled in. So again, like I told you when we were doing our problems up above, when we were doing our comparisons, and when we were doing our converting, you want to start with the biggest unit of measurement first. So when I look here, the biggest unit of measurement we were using so far is 12 yards. So if I look, this is the only yards in here. So I want to start with this, okay? And I want to say, okay, well, my next size, or the next biggest type of unit is feet. So I want to figure out how many feet are in 12 yards. So I would take 12 and multiply it by 3, because I know there's 3 feet in a yard. So I would do my ones place times my ones place first. 2 times 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Good. And then when I would do my ones place times my tens place. 3 times 1. 3 times 1 is 3. Good. So I have 36 feet. So far, I know that this one works because I see 36 feet right there. Okay. Now, I know that 4 feet doesn't work and 15 feet doesn't work, but I do see some inches here, which are the smallest unit of measurement. So now I need to take my 36 feet and change that into inches. So if I have my 36, I know that I need to multiply by my 12 because 12 inches make 1 foot. So when we are converting, remember we have to use how many of the smaller unit makes the bigger unit. So with our double digit multiplication, we're going to start with our ones place times our ones place. So I have 2 times 6. 2 times 6 is 12. Good. Put down my 2. Carry my 1. Then I do my ones place times my tens place. So I have 2 times 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Good. Plus my 1 more up top makes 7. I'm going to cross out my 1 because I've used it. Then we're going to move on to our tens place. And remember, before we do that, we need to add our 0 for our 10. And then we do our tens place times our ones place. So we would do 1 times 6. 1 times 6 is 6. Good. Then we would do our tens place times our tens place. So 1 times 3. 1 times 3 is 3. Good. And then I add these up. So I have 2 plus 0. Good. 2. 7 plus 6. 13. And 3 plus 1 is 4. And now I look at my 2 sets of inches, and do I see 432? Good, I do. It's right here. So I would also color in this answer. So remember, start with our biggest unit, move to our next biggest, and then finally our smallest. Alrighty. For our next problem, we're going to be looking at two students' works and talking about who is making sense and who is making nonsense, or who isn't making sense. Okay, so it says Jasmine and Luke use fraction strips to compare the size of a foot to the size of an inch using fractions. They drew models to show their answers. Whose answer makes sense? Whose answer is nonsense? Explain your reasoning. Okay, so let's take this one at a time. Let's look at Jasmine's work. She has one hole, and then she has 12 little pieces underneath with one piece colored in. And she says 1 inch is 1/12 of a foot. Is she making sense? Is that right? Yes, it is right. So remember that 12 inches make up 1 foot. That's what she's showing us here, just in fraction form. If you took all the ones off the top, you would just have a bunch of 12 making one whole. Same thing, 12 pieces making up one whole. So Jasmine is making sense. Spelled her name wrong. So she is making sense. So her answer makes sense. But then we have to explain why. And our reasoning why is the fact that we know that 12 inches make 1 foot, and that is what she's showing us here by having her 12 pieces making one whole. Okay, so we need to put that into words. So 12 inches make 1 foot. Okay, and her model shows, or the model shows, that 1 inch is the same thing as 1/12 of a foot. So the model shows that 1 inch is 1/12 of a foot. So she's breaking it up into 12 pieces, and that is why it works. So if Jasmine is making sense, that means that Luke is not making or his answer is nonsense. So his answer is nonsense. And now we need to explain why. So why is his answer wrong? What is his model showing us? He says that 1 inch is 1/3 of a foot. Why is that nonsense? But his model is not correct because we know that it takes 12 inches to make 1 foot. What he's showing us right here is not a feet to inches conversion. Okay, so he is not correct because there are 12 inches, not 3 inches in a foot. So that's what he's showing us here. He says you only need 3 inches to make 1 foot, and that is not correct. So his model is not correct. There are 12 inches, not 3 inches in a foot. Okay, he didn't give us enough inches to make our foot. We have some problems that go along with this. So for A, it says, for the answer that is nonsense, So for Luke's answer, because we figured out that one's the nonsense one, write an answer that makes sense. So what should Luke have done to make his model make sense? But he should have made it like Jasmine's and showed that 1 inch is a 1/12 of a foot because it takes 12 of them to make it up. Okay, so Luke's model should show 1 foot as our hole, so still should have 1 foot as our hole. And 1 inch as 1/12 of the hole, which just means he should have showed us that it takes 12 pieces to make 1 hole when we're talking about inches to feet. So he should have made his model look like Jasmine with 1 whole piece and then 12 small pieces with 1 shaded in, showing that 1/12 or that 1 inch is 1/12 of the hole. Okay. Part B says, look back at Luke's model. Which 2 units could you compare using his model? So what 2 units that we talked about? Remember, we talked about inches, feet, and yards. Okay, and how you get from each of them. So which 2 of these types of units is he showing us here? What unit do you need 3 of to make another? What unit do you need 3 of to make another? Good, feet to yards. Remember, if we look back on our chart, we need 3 feet to make 1 yard. So his model is actually showing us that this whole piece is a yard, and these would be feet down below. So Luke is showing yards and feet. Because, remember, we have to explain, so that because is our explaining. So because we know that 3 feet equal 1 yard. Alrighty. So now it is your time to do some work. Okay. On the homework page, the top part is just converting from one form of a unit to another unit. So either from yards to feet or from feet to inches. Okay. Remember that 1 foot equals 12 inches, and that 1 yard equals 3 feet. Okay, so if I want to go from inches to, if I want to go from feet, I'll put my arrow the other way, to inches, I need to multiply by 12. If I want to go from yards to feet, I need to multiply by 3. Oh, you can't see that. There we go. Okay, so if I want to go from feet to from feet to inches, I want to multiply by 12. If I want to go from yards to feet, I multiply by the 3. Okay. For numbers 8 through 13, you're comparing. So again, you're going to have to convert one of them. Remember to convert your bigger unit. So if you're looking at yards and feet, you want to convert the yards to feet, to the smaller. And if you're looking at feet to inches, you want to convert your feet into inches. Okay. For number 14, it says, Carla has 2 lengths of ribbon. One ribbon is 2 feet long. The other ribbon is 30 inches long. Which length of ribbon is longer? So you need to tell me which one is longer between 2 feet and 30 inches, not 3 inches. Okay, so you'll have to convert your feet to inches and then tell me which one is longer and how you know that. Remember to explain. Okay. Here is a very similar problem. So it says a football player gained 2 yards on one play. On the next play, he gained 5 feet. Was his gain greater on the first play or the second play? So on his first play, he did 2 yards. On his second play, he did 5 feet. Which one is greater or bigger, the first one or the second one? Okay, so you need to convert his yards into feet and see what's bigger, 20 yards in feet or 5 feet, and then explain how you know which one is bigger. And that can be as simple as like what we did before when we said stuff like on number 11 here, where we said we know that she has enough because 3 yards is equal to 108 inches. So it's the same thing here. If you think 30 inches is longer, you say, I know 30 inches is longer because 2 feet equals however many inches, and that's smaller than 30 inches. Or here, if we know that 5 feet is bigger than 2 yards, 2 yards equal this many feet, which is smaller than 5 feet, okay? Not saying those are the correct answers, just giving you an example of how you can write it in an explanation to complete that problem. Right. On the back, it says Marta has 14 feet of wire to use to make necklaces. She needs to know the length in inches so she can determine how many necklaces to make. How many inches of wire does she have? So this one wants you to take your 14 feet and change them into inches. So how many inches are in 14 feet? Number 2 on the back says Jared bought 8 yards of ribbon. He needs 200 inches to use to make curtains. How many inches of ribbon does he have? So he has 8 yards, and they want to know how many inches that is. Okay. On your spiral review, you do not need to do number 2. That comes from Unit 11, which we have not done. Okay. Number 4 asks you what decimal represents the shaded part of the model. So what decimal does this show? Okay. Number 5 says 3 sisters share $3.60 equally. Okay. So how much does each sister get if they're splitting it equally? And number 6, which is the best estimate for the width of your finger, of your index finger? So if you were to look at your index finger, what type of measurement would you use to estimate from here to here? What type of measurement would you use to go across your finger? Look back in yesterday's lesson and you'll find an example that might help you with that one. Okay, so make sure you do your math homework page. If you have any questions, make sure you mark them on your page, write them down, have them ready. I will, again, send out the link at 2:15 like I did yesterday, but I will not start our Zoom meeting until 2:20. Okay, we'll go through this page. We'll answer any, I'll answer any questions that you guys have about this or about the lesson in general. And can't wait to see you guys all at our Zoom meeting later today. Bye.